Filthy animals like you belong in cages, not courthouses. Those words stuck in Officer Martinez's throat, echoing in the air long after they left his lips, and they would haunt him for the rest of his life. Judge Kesha Williams was just approaching the courthouse that morning, in civilian clothes, carrying her briefcase loaded with case files for the day. Another ghetto rat trying to sneak in. Martinez sneered, stepping into her path with a grin that didn't reach his eyes. Before she could react, his open palm cracked across her face, snapping her head to the side. The briefcase went flying, papers raining down the courthouse steps like confetti. Martinez yanked her by the throat, slamming her against the cold stone wall, twisting her arms behind her back until the metal handcuffs bit into her wrists. Laughter erupted from the other officers gathered around. Phones raised to capture every second. And there she was, 20 feet from her own courtroom, staring at the bronze nameplate, the Honorable Judge K. Williams presiding, being brutalized by the very system she had sworn to uphold. Inside the courtroom, Martinez straightened his uniform, smoothing out a lie as easily as his creased collar. Routine security, suspicious behavior, verbal aggression, resisting arrest. He spun the story like an artist painting a portrait of heroism while ignoring the blood on his hands. Judge Harrison, a pale, elderly man filling in temporarily, nodded along as Martinez recounted the encounter, embellishing details, warming to his own narrative. From the gallery, Officers Rodriguez and Thompson exchanged knowing looks. This was old hat, same script, different faces, decades of stories about troublemakers and criminals that never failed to protect their own. Kesha sat in handcuffs, jaw throbbing, but her eyes never wavered from that nameplate, silently cataloging every lie, every fabrication, every half-truth spoken against her. Martinez rattled on about improper dress, suspicious documents, and threats that never existed. The prosecutor, Sandra Walsh, nodded along, the gallery mostly nodding too, conditioned by years of similar performances. Statements about identity theft, fraud schemes, and criminal behavior were made with authority, but Kesha stayed silent, letting him hang himself with every word. Then she spoke, for the first time. That morning, her voice calm but cutting through the tension. "I'm sorry," she murmured, dismissing the shock. Judge Harrison blinked, unsure how to respond. Kesha's words had the weight of someone who understood the law, the rhythm of the courtroom, and the power to turn the tide. She systematically dismantled Martinez's claims, invoking constitutional rights, Supreme Court rulings, and the federal rules of evidence, exposing his lies with each measured statement. She pointed to the public sidewalk where she had been walking, proving she hadn't trespassed, and then to the scattered case files Martinez claimed were suspicious, showing they were, in fact, authentic legal documents she was authorized to carry. Officer Martinez had never checked, never cared. He assumed. He judged, he assaulted. Kesha calmly demanded the preservation of all surveillance footage, backup body cam files, and recordings from the morning, reminding the courtroom that technology had a memory Martinez couldn't erase. The bailiff, Henderson, recognized her, horror written across his face. In the holding room, she collected her judicial robes and ceremonial gavel, the symbols of decades of authority. She centered herself, breathing through the calm she had perfected over 23 years on the bench, transforming from victim back into the judge she had always been. Returning to the courtroom in full regalia, Kesha's entrance froze everyone in place. The words, "The Honorable Judge Kesha Williams presiding," thundered through the room. Martinez, once confident, turned to ash. Judge Harrison, realizing he was no longer in control, scrambled from his chair. Kesha addressed Martinez directly, recounting his own words, his threats, and his lies, playing back security footage, body cam recordings, and audio evidence that left him trembling. "You asked me if I knew my place," she said, her eyes piercing. "Well, let me tell you exactly what my place is. My place is on this bench, holding people accountable when they abuse power. Your place, Officer Martinez, is in that chair, facing the consequences of 15 years of misconduct." One by one, Kesha detailed Martinez's record: 47 formal complaints, a disproportionate targeting of people of color, excessive force, and nearly $2.3 million in taxpayer payouts caused by his Actions. Each revelation was supported by evidence, charts, and statistics that painted a damning picture of systemic abuse. And he had provided the smoking gun with his own words and behavior that morning. Her voice rose with authority and controlled rage. She recounted his specific lies under oath, exposed the officers who laughed while she was assaulted, and detailed the federal investigation into his actions. "You assaulted a federal judge performing her official duties," she stated, letting each word land like a gavel strike. "You did so based on racial animus. And you perjured yourself in front of this court. Actions have consequences, Officer Martinez. Today, you learn yours." Martinez collapsed under the weight of accountability, sobs echoing through the courtroom. Kesha didn't flinch. She sentenced him to the maximum allowed by law. 25 years without parole, federal felonies for assault, perjury, and deprivation of civil rights. But she didn't stop there. She launched a federal review of every case he had touched, ensuring that hundreds of wrongfully convicted individuals would finally see justice and systemic reforms would be enacted. In the months that followed, the fallout reshaped the department. 12 officers were terminated, supervisors criminally charged, protocols for evidence and body cams overhauled, and oversight enforced. Hundreds of cases were reopened, settlements paid, and the courthouse itself was renamed the Justice Williams Federal Courthouse, a symbol of accountability and courage. Kesha became a national emblem of judicial integrity, her story inspiring law clerks, lawyers, and activists to fight systemic abuse. Officer Martinez, once a figure of terror in his community, now understood the full weight of power, accountability, and justice from inside a federal prison. Justice, Kesha had proven, isn't blind. It sees, it acts, and sometimes it carries robes and a gavel. Never underestimate the power of standing up to bullies. Share this story if you believe everyone deserves justice, no matter their status or skin color. Hit like if courage and accountability inspire you, and remember, your story could be next, because truth always finds a way. The courtroom was still buzzing from the shock of Martinez realizing he hadn't just assaulted any citizen, he'd assaulted me, Judge Kesha Williams, the woman who had spent 23 years on that bench protecting the very rights he trampled. But I didn't let the moment slip into satisfaction. I needed precision, clarity. Every move had to count. I stepped down from the bench for the first time that morning, the gavel tucked firmly under my arm, robes flowing, and eyes scanning the room, like a predator calculating its next step. The officers who had laughed while I was assaulted were now shifting uncomfortably, shuffling papers, avoiding eye contact. I could feel the weight of decades of injustice in the room, the same weight that had allowed Martinez to act with impunity. That was about to change. "Officer Martinez," I said, my voice calm but loaded with authority. "You just spent an hour testifying under oath about how you heroically subdued a criminal. Let's review what really happened." I gestured toward the tablet in my hand, flicking it to the first video. The footage played, crystal clear. Me, walking calmly toward the courthouse in civilian clothes, briefcase in hand, heading to my courtroom. Martinez stepped into view, sneering, then struck me. Without provocation. Every slap, every grab, every hateful word. Filthy animals belong in cages. All there, captured in unforgiving detail. The room fell silent. The few spectators left in the gallery sucked in a collective breath. Even the prosecutor's face drained of color. I let the video play through the assault, then paused it. "Do you see any verbal aggression, any threats? Any profanity from me?" I asked, eyes locking onto Martinez. His mouth opened, closed, nothing came out. I swiped to the backup body cam footage, the one he claimed didn't exist. It did exist. Automatically uploaded to the county's secure system every 60 seconds. There I was again, completely composed, while Martinez raged, unprovoked, treating a federal judge like a criminal. Officers Thompson and Rodriguez were caught on audio, laughing at his brutality, mocking the very person he swore to protect. "Officer Martinez," I continued, letting the words sink in. "You asked me earlier if I had any employment verification. I do." I gestured to the judicial seal behind my bench, my nameplate, the oil painting in the lobby. "I have been the presiding judge of this courthouse for 23 years. Every case you testified in, Every warrant you requested, every search you conducted, it was under my authority. His shoulders slumped. He couldn't move, couldn't speak, couldn't even process what was happening. I leaned in slightly, voice dropping to a dangerous whisper that carried across the silent courtroom. You didn't know? You didn't know? Because you didn't look. You saw a black woman and decided she had no power. You saw someone you assumed could be crushed and chose violence. But you underestimated one thing. Justice doesn't just. Watch. Sometimes it stands up. Sometimes it hits back. I lifted the gavel and held it high, the engraved words catching the light. Justice is blind, but she sees all. Officer Martinez. For the past 6 months, I've been quietly investigating systemic misconduct in your department, working directly with the FBI Civil Rights Division. Today, you provided the perfect, undeniable evidence of your crimes, against me and against the people you swore to protect. The gavel came down, hard. The sound reverberated like a thunderclap, shaking the room, shaking him. Martinez collapsed into his chair, sobs bubbling up uncontrollably. His career, his freedom, his reputation, it all hung by a thread. I didn't stop. Let's talk about your record. 47 complaints in 15 years. 1,089 arrests. 87% involved people of color. 43% of those cases dismissed due to constitutional violations or misconduct. Millions in taxpayer dollars spent to cover your abuse. All because you thought the system would always protect you. You were wrong. The courtroom gasped at the numbers, at the scale, at the undeniable pattern. Every person who had witnessed his performance that morning, every officer who laughed, every clerk who took notes, they were finally seeing the truth. I walked slowly, around the bench, letting the weight of my presence fill the room. Today, you learned your place. Your place, Officer Martinez, is in that chair, facing the consequences of 15 years of criminal behavior, perjury, and assault against a judicial officer. You are guilty of federal felonies. You will serve 25 years without parole. And this is only the beginning. Heads turned as. Whispers spread through the gallery. Lawyers, clerks, reporters, everyone knew they were witnessing history. I had not only defended myself, I had exposed a system that allowed abuse to fester. I had reclaimed authority in the most complete way possible. And yet, as the gavel came down again, I let a pause hang in the air. This wasn't just about Martinez. It was about everyone who had ever been silenced, dismissed, or brutalized by those in power. It was a message. No one, not even those with badges, is above the law. In the weeks and months that followed, the ripple effects transformed the courthouse and the community. Officers were disciplined, cases reopened, settlements paid, reforms enacted. Citizens who had been afraid to speak out now came forward. Oversight boards were established. Training programs were overhauled. The courthouse was renamed in honor of justice and integrity. And I continued my work, knowing that sometimes justice isn't blind. It wears robes, carries a gavel, and strikes at exactly the right moment. Martinez sits in federal prison, finally powerless, finally facing the consequences he so long avoided. But the story doesn't end here. Every system has its weak points. Every bully has a chance to return. The lessons from that day aren't just for one officer. They're for anyone who thinks they can abuse power without consequence. Justice watches. Justice waits. And sometimes, when the time is right, justice hits back harder than anyone expects. Never underestimate the power of standing up to bullies. Share this story if you believe everyone deserves justice. Comment your thoughts. Have you ever witnessed someone get away with abuse, only for karma to catch up? The conversation starts now.